The West Tigers podcast is brought to you by the West Tigers Podcast Forum. Have your say on anything to do with the West Tigers, westtigers.com.au.
West Tigers podcast episode number 342, joined by Steve only tonight. We're going to review the West Tigers 40-28 loss to Melbourne Storm at Leichhardt Oval on Saturday night. But before we do that, Steve, I thought I'd go through some of the one-word submissions by fellow forumers. Skipper 13 and Barra both said sin bin. Tristo went with disappointing. Canberra Tiger had 2 words, senior leadership. Mike had squandered. Quite like that one. Plunder Monkey said 1%ers. Frullins went with 2025. So he's, I think, looking maybe optimistically at that game. Tiger 5150 went with frustration, one of my favourite words. Boon Boon, my mate Boon Boon, he went with potential. Thought he might have gone with Buller, Steve, but he went with potential. Tiger Tim went with courageous. Nat Mac 78 went with loyalty. Might be referring to the fans there, or I'm not sure. Dirty Reds went with fitness. Logan 21 said Bazers. I think I've got correctly. Avo said outcoached. It's an interesting one. The Last Ronin went with youth. Rusty 63. Impatient. Snake, Steve. He went with censored.
Interesting one.
Sure.
I think his word is censored. I think that's what it is.
Might be a little bit more strong than that. Chook went with chances. Rach09 just went with Pole. Had a fantastic game. Matt V. Tiger went with 6 again. Steve, any of those words take your fancy, or did you have your own word?
No, well, Rach09 has just grabbed mine. I didn't realise that. I was going to be the man of positivity tonight, and I was going to say Pole because I was just so impressed with his game, mate. Like I just throw the stats out there. He played for 60 minutes. He had 167 metres, 73 post-contact metres, 21 tackle with 0 missed tackles. Plus he scored a great try with footwork at the line, and he's showing good footwork when he's running the football. So I was going to try to be really positive, but Rach beat me to it. So I'll have to change it, and I'll go my 1 word or 2 words as completion rate.
Did the 60%. Yeah.
Yeah, 68%, mate. Not good enough.
I had the word loose, Steve, which it could sort of be interpreted a couple of different ways. I thought it was a loose performance in attack in terms of we showed some attacking real threat this game. I think we made 7 line breaks, scored 5 tries against the Melbourne Storm. I know they're missing a couple, but they're still a very ardent defensive team and only conceded 6 points against Canberra. So I thought the 28 was very impressive, but we were loose defensively. Some really bad misses, some slipovers where they just went clean through, conceded 10 line breaks, and that 40-28 loss. But that word that stuck out to me was Mike's one, squandered. I thought, despite, first versus 16th and where they are on the ladder, I think the boys would be entitled to be disappointed after that game because I thought it was winnable.
Well, I agree, and it goes back to what you and I said on a pod not long ago about how this year has been so much more frustrating than last year, for example, because we're in every game with a chance. This was a winnable game. If we'd executed at a higher percentage, right? If our defence had been tighter, if we'd won key moments instead of lost key moments, that game, if we hadn't had a sin binning again, that game's there for the taking. And so many of our games have been there for the taking this year. And and this is why I go back. I know you'll disagree with me, and that's fine. Where I go back and say, look, I don't think we are the worst squad. We're definitely not the best squad, but I don't think we're any worse than a lot of the squads out there. The difference is the ability of this squad to ice the moments in games and to play with discipline and concentration. It's not skill. The squad has skill. Scored 28 points against the Storm. It's the ability to execute over 80 minutes that kills us.
Well, I think there were 2 big turning points, Steve, and one of them was certainly the sin bin, because it's been a story of our season, and you take out that sin bin, it was 28 all, and it was a really even game. Melbourne have scored of course, scored those 2 tries when Fatape was in the bin, and that was in a key middle period of that second half. I was on the hill, on that portion of the hill where you're a little bit obstructed in that far corner. So I got to be honest, I actually didn't see it. I've read a lot of comments on the forum, some saying, well, it was an obvious sin bin, it's just our stupid play, and others saying, well, if they're going to start sin binning for that, there's going to be a lot of people sin binned off kicks. What did you make of the actual sin bin itself, Steve?
Yeah, I don't think there was any. I watched the game back again today and had a closer look at it. I don't think there was any intent from Fatape, but it was just careless. It was careless play. He got into the wrong position and got caught in the wrong position, and then I can't remember the Storm player's name, but the guy then went over the top of him and he was it was a sin bin. It was an obvious sin bin, but there was definitely no intent. Can't blame the ref for that one, though.
Avo said outcoached. It's been an issue this year, the sin bin, with just petty, ill-disciplined sort of play. I'm not sure you could label that one this, because I remember when the kick went up, Olam was on the ground. They actually had a couple of people on the inside of Warbrick who could have tapped it back, so they almost had like a 3-on-1. So you can understand Fatape's sort of desperation in that sense, where he's looking to stop a try, or he knows there's a lot of danger.
Yeah, look, if we're talking about coaching, we're talking about game plan. Like, I actually thought the game plan that we went into that game with against the Storm was quite good. We played very expansively and we held our shape beautifully. Probably the best we've played with shape all season, really. We attacked them out wide, and we got round them quite often, which is something that we don't do. So it's obvious that the coaching team recognised something in the Melbourne defence and went after it. We used second phase play better than we've used it most of the year. We ran a number of dummy runners at their defensive line, which is something we haven't been doing with any consistency. So I actually think the coaching for that game was actually quite good. The overall coaching with our, again, and you know, I say it, I'm red in the face, I'm worse than Joel with physicality with this one, but when I say our attention to detail in all aspects of the game just remains not good enough. You know, you're right. I saw it. I can't remember whereabouts this was the game, but there was a dropout. Adam Dewey dropped out. I'm sure it was Adam Dewey, and it wasn't deep, but it wasn't short. It just sort of landed halfway, and so it wasn't short enough that we could contest it, and it wasn't deep enough to be effective, and it was just a wasted kick, right? And I thought, well, what's the point of that? Like, you either go deep or you contest it short, and it's these little moments in games that we continually lose that cost us so much.
Even interesting, and like there was a fair breeze blowing down the ground towards the Leichhardt pool. I'm not sure if that's south or north or whatever, but big breeze going down the ground, and Melbourne opted, when they were dropping out from the end with the wind, to kick long, which seemed common sense, whereas we went short a couple of times and didn't get the ball back. So I wonder if that was maybe a little point maybe that Avo was talking about. But the other turning point, I thought, and Gary pointed this out ad nauseum after the game, was when Adam Dewey went through at 12-6. He was quite critical that he thought he went for a bit of a hero play and tried to get round the outside of Pappenhausen. Ended up not only blowing the try, but coughing up possession. I probably looked at the replay and thought I wasn't quite as harsh, because it wasn't like it was a long break. He was through, and then all of a sudden Buller appeared up the inside, but I don't think he was in his vision. Do you think he made that a bit of a hero play there, or do you thought it wasn't an obvious bomb try?
No, I'm going to, when I was watching it live, I was screaming at the TV saying that you've just bombed a try, Dewey. You know, you should have looked to the left, stop being a hero. So I was right on Gary's point. Then I watched it again, and there was Buller, and I think there was Galvin as well, but they were a good 2 or 3 yards back, and they definitely would have been at it. He'd have had to turn over his left shoulder, quite pronounced to see them coming up on the left, and they just weren't there in time. So I think trying to go around the right as he did was about the only thing he could do in that situation.
You mentioned the attack, Steve, 28 points. Is it a case of guys maybe playing a bit longer together? That spine now has been intact for 3 or 4 games in a row. Jareen Buller had a really good game. I think it was probably his best game of the season. But we've stripped numbers really easily, which, like you rightly pointed out, we haven't done it all this season. That first try to Charlie Staines was just a case of, I think, us running some really good decoys, Melbourne getting stripped, and him going over untouched. We've always had the guile of Appy out of dummy half, but we haven't been able to strip some numbers. So do you think it's just a case of boys playing together longer and getting some personnel back in Dewey as well?
Yeah, I absolutely. We've got more dangerous and numerous points of attack than we've had early in the season. Like, the defensive line has to watch across our attack more than they did earlier in the season, and that's because of guys like Dewey coming back. And you're right what you say about Appy. He's always provided, that guile and uncertainty out of dummy half. His skill in just delaying the pass and holding it back and is just incredible. But I'll tell you what else happened on the weekend, and that was our props. Like Pole and Steph, they were dominating in the middle, and they were giving us go forward, and they were giving us momentum, which makes it easier for Appy to do his work, and it also sucks in defenders into the middle, which is going to leave you short out wide, and which was what was happening. And as I've said many times, I'm not the only one, and anyone who's watched the game of footy says this, that it all starts in the middle, and I thought our middles were really good.
Defensively, I guess, always disappointing to concede 40 points. I guess probably a little bit more understandable the week before against the Roosters, where I thought this game against Melbourne, they've obviously got good players and led by Jerome Hughes, who does ice those moments that we tend to not ice, Steve. But without Munster, without Harry Grant, disappointing to concede 40 points. I thought they also had a clear plan of attack to go after Olam. A lot of, not just line breaks, but a lot of meters came down that side, and it was obvious early in that game that he was nowhere near 100%.
Yeah, and you're right. Olam is definitely playing injured. But why did we get 40 points put on us? Well, one, because we put so much pressure on ourselves with our lack of completion, 68%. We're turning the ball over too often. Wishart and Pappenhausen were just too fast for us, and Hughes, but I think Wishart and Pappenhausen more. They were just too elusive. And just those one-on-one misses, right? Just not getting across, like that one where I think it was Wishart went between Stefano and Fainu and led to that breakdown field, which then they scored off. Oh, no. So that was Bateman. Bateman missed.
Bateman missed one where he slipped over, but he was probably being burnt anyway.
But a lot of times, I know they just weren't, our defenders just weren't coming across, so Wishart and Pappenhausen Hughes were skipping to the outside, and our inside defender just wasn't coming across laterally quick enough, and they were getting beaten on the outside because of that. So, that's why we got done. Again, Simbin didn't help, but we just released the pressure.
Well, even Steve, after that first try to make it 6-0, I think we dropped the ball on the first tackle.
Yeah.
After that try.
Coming back off that's right, yeah.
Because it's like you said, it was a game where you felt like, I don't know if we were dominating the middle, but you certainly felt like it was an even contest throughout the game. There was no point where I thought, well, they're miles better than us.
No, well, there were just those moments, right? There was 10 minutes with the sin bin. There was the 2 tries in consecutive sets just before half time, I think that was. Where we drop our concentration, we drop our intensity, and that's it. And the good teams, and when I say good teams, I'm talking about the other 16 teams, right? Because every team in this competition, if you take your foot off the accelerator, they'll put their foot on the accelerator, and they're gone before you know it. Now, teams like the Roosters are almost unbeatable, right? The Storm, they're coming first because they're so clinical, but they're not unbeatable. And we showed we could have beaten. Like 28 points, that should win you a lot of games.
I agree with you there. Let's look at some of the individual performances, Steve. You mentioned Stefano. His stats don't jump off the page here. 97 metres, so 13 runs. Seemed like Melbourne tried to really go after him physically. There are a couple of runs there where they tried to really bully him backwards. I thought he was trying out there. Played 54 minutes. Um, I don't know, not one of his worst games, but not one of his best games, Steve. That's how I'd probably describe it.
No, he wasn't a star, but I thought he was really solid. I liked his aggression. He took his aggression a bit too far there at one point. But you know what? I didn't mind that because everyone's been complaining about Stefano saying he seems half asleep half the time. Well, I thought he ran with intent. I thought he was trying to dominate. In attack anyway, in his attacking play, he definitely was. Excuse me. He definitely was. Getting up in their faces and trying to be the dominant prop on the field. So, yeah, I know his stats don't jump off the page. He didn't win a game for us or anything like that, but I thought he was stronger than he has been and played with a lot more intent. And I just hope, mate, it wasn't because of what Mick Ennis said on the coverage. You wouldn't have heard it because you're at the game. Mick Ennis says in the coverage that big game for Stefano, he'd be really trying to impress Bellamy. Like, what a jerk. Ennis, you're a jerk, mate, if you listen to this. But what a terrible thing to say on a coverage. But I hope that wasn't the case.
Vanua Pole, like you mentioned, there was a late change. I think he started at lock because Clemmer was meant to be on the bench, and Clemmer, I'm pretty sure, started that game. But he was very eye-catching performance. Like you said at the start, Steve, his footwork is really dangerous, and he runs the ball really hard. And in these new rules, with the 6 again and whatnot, it's those ability of some of those forwards to get in between the tacklers and get quick play the balls. Like he got 1 try, but he could have got 2 or 3. I think there was another where he might have dropped it over the line, but he's becoming a weapon in the red zone as well as a meter eater with those 167 meters.
Well, if you got a guy with his size that can put on footwork and change direction right on the opposition line, he's going to get a try, fairly regularly, I reckon, So, and I just said that. The thing I like about his footwork is it's right at the line. All right. He's not changing direction 2 meters before the line. It's right at the line. So he's a difficult customer to tackle, and he's not missing tackles, mate. That's the other thing, right? He's not a liability in defense. He was, last season, he was a liability in defense. But that is changing. And I don't know, mate. I'm not sure about this, but he looks lighter to me. He looks like he may have dropped weight for this season, and it has a little bit more agility about him.
Interesting. I'm just looking at his contract situation. I'm just Googling this on the run, so I could be wrong, but only on contract until the end of 2025, which would mean he'd be free to negotiate in November. Like, I hate to say it, Steve, but this would be classic West Tigers. We're also concerned about Stefano, and one of those big clubs slips under our guards and goes after Pole.
Yeah, well, it's not just this game. He's been getting better all season. It's been obvious. He's been one of our better players all year. So I would hope that something is in the mix there behind the scenes, and they're trying to tie him down. There's not a lot of headlines about him, I suppose, but there will be if he keeps playing like he did last weekend. And as I say all the time about recruitment, like, we've got to build. We can't just replace. We've got to build. So I'm hoping they're trying to keep Stefano and Polo.
David Clemmer only played 40 minutes, Steve. I don't really know where David Clemmer's at. Like, I always think he's been quite solid, and I think he's a professional, but he doesn't seem to have that venom that he had even the start of last year. I thought he started last year really strong, his first 10 or 12 weeks at the club. And then I think it's been downhill since then. He still punches out reasonable numbers for his minutes, but doesn't seem to have the impact that he used to.
No, he's definitely not the player he was. He's still strong in the middle. He doesn't get pushed backwards at the defensive line. His go forward meters are usually pretty good. And I noticed on the weekend that his post contact, he'd drive through a couple of steps, 2 or 3 steps every time he took the ball up. But he's getting older, mate. And these guys, when they get older, they get little niggles. As the season wears on, they get tired, and it's more difficult for them. And he's not what he was, when he was up at Newcastle playing for New South Wales. He's not that player. He's still a good, solid first grader. And he makes our 17 easily, but I'm not sure how long he's going to be effective for.
2 back rows, I thought starting back rows had good games, Steve. I mean, Samuel Fainu's been almost the signing of the season across the NRL for me in terms of the value we probably got him for. He was 14 runs, 144 metres, looked dangerous every time he had the ball. John Bateman had one of his busiest games, to be fair, parked out on that right edge, 19 runs, 177 metres. There were one or two times where I was frustrated with him, but definitely I think that's where he's at his best, Bateman, is when he's on that right edge. And he seemed to keep it a little bit simpler, Steve. He seemed to be getting a bit deeper and running onto the ball rather than trying to jink across the field all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you, Eddie. I think he's at his best when he runs straight and hard down the short side, right, and tries to catch a retreating defence. And he was doing that. And the minute he tries to force an offload, I start to worry, because he tends to not get a quality offload away. And the minute he starts to crab a goal, I did see me throw it. I can't remember if it was this game of the week before, but he threw a beautiful face ball when he was crabbing across field. But a lot of the time he doesn't, mate. A lot of the time all he does is just pull the defence across and then get smashed. I agree with you. It's no secret that I haven't been happy with him this year. I've been quite disappointed, mainly because he's a senior leader in the team, and I don't think he leads by example enough. But he was solid. He was very good early, I thought. But you mentioned two turning points. You didn't mention the miss on Wishart, and I reckon that was a huge turning point, because that changed the momentum and took them 30, 40 yards downfield, and then they scored soon after that. And that was a Bateman miss, which was everyone misses tackles. You can't hang guys out for that, but it wasn't a good one.
Before we talk about the outside backs, we'll just go to the bench, because obviously it's 3 forwards on the bench plus Heath Mason. And, I mean, it's probably not unusual these days to see guys getting less minutes off the bench, but it seems to be quite stark here, Steve. Like, the longest any of our bench players played was 34 minutes with Seyfarth. Matamua played 24. Sione Fainu played 26. Heath Mason, I think, played maybe 15 minutes at the end, or 10 minutes. And the most metres we had is 38 metres from Sione Fainu. Matamua just 30. Seyfarth 29. Heath Mason 1 run. You wouldn't think that's an ideal situation. I suppose it shows you got faith in your starting players and they're doing a job to an extent, but yeah, I just don't think that's sustainable, having a bench with 4 guys with 30 minutes or less.
Yeah, well, I don't understand the fourth person on the bench from Benji this year. Now, whether it's a hooker or whether it's Mason.
Purely must be just injury cover, must it?
Yeah, it really is. But we are obviously fatigued. Like when we've got a 68% completion and we're forced to do more tackling, we turn the ball over and we're not executing well, which we haven't been all season. We are going to be more fatigued in games, and so to keep someone almost 100% fresh on the bench just doesn't seem right to me. But if you've got a hooker that wants to play 80 minutes, or the coach wants him to play 80 minutes and he's prepared to play 80 minutes, and you've got back rowers that can push out long minutes or in fact 80 minutes, that lessens the time on the field for your bench players, I suppose. And it comes down to your prop rotation and really, as you just said, keeping someone fresh. So that's the way he's chosen to do it. Like, we've only won 4 games, so can't say it's been a huge success.
A little bit sorry for Heath Mason, Steve. He obviously went on for Justin Olam, who was really struggling in that second half, and then he ended up in the centres. And I don't know the young fullback's the replacement fullback for Melbourne, but boy, he's a player. He just burned him for speed on the outside.
Just burned him big time, didn't he? Yeah, that was unfortunate. Reminded me of State of Origin last year.
The outside backs, I've been very critical at times of Jareen Buller, but I thought that was his best games. And looking at the stats, 2 try assists, 2 line break assists, 1 line break, 1 try, 4 tackle breaks. Seemed like he was getting injected into the back line with a bit of time and space.
Yeah, he was. And as I said earlier, that is partly to do with what was happening in the middle of the field. I also think the timing of the sweep plays was much better. And I also noticed that Galvin was straightening before he was passing, right, which was then causing Buller to straighten. And one of the criticisms we've had of Buller is he's taken the ball into the line at that 45-degree angle and just continuing to slide across towards the touchline and actually negating his outside men, whereas Galvin was the one straightening the attack up which then forced Buller to straighten up, and it was working.
The centre combination, it's a good one on paper, Steve, heading into next year, Justin Olam and Adam Dewey, but I've got to have some fitness concerns around Justin Olam. I've heard a couple of different things, that he's getting almost like plasma injections or something, which is almost a last chance saloon for your knee. I mean, it just seems like we might, even though he's been good when he's been out there, I get the feeling this is going to be ongoing for the next, I know we signed him for 3 years. Hopefully he gets to the end of that 3 years, but I get the feeling for the rest of this season, maybe it might be better to put him away, because I just don't see him getting through more than 1 or 2 games in a row. The way, I think that's a throw off. Benji said it's a calf. I don't think it's a calf. I think it's a knee issue.
Yeah, well, he's definitely wasn't his best. Like the Storm would know him better than most, obviously, right? And they were directing, as you said, a lot of traffic down his way. He's obviously struggling to move laterally. His defense, when he jumps out of the line, his defense is still very strong. But when he's got to slide across in defense, he's struggling to do that execute that at any pace. So I agree with you. There's no reason to have him out there where the season's done and dusted for us. And if there's nothing to gain, why not give him that time to recover so he can have a full off season and pre-season to get ready for next year?
Adam Dewey, another busy game, Steve. Did make 3 errors, but I think, sort of to Gary's point, he's just got to find the right balance in his game between, wanting to get involved. And geez, he looks super dangerous at the moment. He looks a lot lighter than when he was that first couple of years when he played for us. But there were a couple of times, even I think on last plays, where he went for the line himself, just probably wasn't the right option.
Well, this is you're right. You're absolutely right. He needs to learn to look to his right and find his outside men. And he doesn't do that. He just sort of tends to try to beat the men himself. If I want to be really severe, I'll say that he's a fairly selfish player in that regard. Things he's said in the past lend to that, but I also think he's a very wholehearted and team first player. So I don't want to be that hard on him. I just think, as you said, he needs to pick and choose when to go himself, when to find the outside man. But he's definitely adding to our attack. One of the things I said at the beginning of the pod when you asked me was, how do we get 28 points? And it was because we've got multiple points of attack and multiple spots on the field now that oppositions have to watch. And Dewey is one of them. He's dangerous. He's dangerous with ball in hand. So teams have to just stay back and watch him and stay off him a little bit, which then not only is good for Dewey, but it's good for the players around Dewey because the focus isn't on them.
He's found his spot, Steve. I mean, he might not want to admit it, but that to me looks like just easily his best spot. And you give him a little bit of license to roam. You got to be careful with that because you don't want him taking over, but almost like that sort of Tom Trbojevic role in Origin where he can be dangerous like that when that ball dropped on the ground in the middle of the field and he went straight through.
Yeah, well, that's right. I agree with you 100%. That is definitely his spot. He's a centre and he can be, I think, develop into a really good centre. And I wouldn't have been saying that a few weeks ago. I was saying I'm not sure where he fits into our team. But definitely there. And you're right. Like there was another example last week, or it might have been the week before, where it was his first game back, where he dropped back to fullback when he saw that we were a bit short back there. And Benji said, "Look, I didn't instruct him to do that. I didn't say to look out for that situation. That was just him on the field making a decision." So he's a smart footballer and he's a footballer, right? He's a good footballer. He's got football sense out there on the field. So, he's got to work on his defence. He's got to work on his linking up with his outside men. And Gary says this a lot. It's a good point. I like it. Where he says a good player makes players around them look better. Yeah. He's got to work on that. If he does that, he could be a really good player for us.
Any comment on the halves, Steve? I sort of think they've built up a pretty good combination, Galvin and Caesar. I know, Galvin patrols the left mainly and Caesar patrols the right. One thing I would like to say, if I was critical of Galvin, I'd like him, and I'm sure he probably is, but I think over this back half of the season and in the off-season, I just really want him to work on his kicking game because it looks very instinctive, which can be good, but there doesn't seem to be, a 7 or 8 out of 10 kick all the time. There's a few times now he's put the ball in the back fence when he's short on the line. And I just think if you want to be a top half in the game, you've got to get that. Your bad kicking days have to be a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree. I think from memory, in last week's game, he dropped it out the back twice, gave them 2 7
Yeah, well, he kicked one. I remember he also kicked a bomb, which was with the wind, that also went out the back fence. So definitely 2 7 tackle sets.
Yeah, and you can't do that, right? That 7 tackle set is just so damaging because it puts the opposition into an attacking kick on the 5th tackle every single time. So you just got to not drop the ball out the back like that as much as you can help it. I agree with that. Look, I think he's been very closely marked from defensive teams. He'd definitely be on their tip sheet every week. And despite that, he's still elusive. He's got a good, I think he's got a good balance between feeding his outside men and running himself. I think he's struggling to beat defenders at the moment when he goes himself. Like they've worked him out pretty quick in that regard. So he's got to get more in his kit bag. But the poor kid's 18, right? He'll do that as he develops and gets bigger and stronger. And Caesar, like I know we got towed up by the Roosters, but there's no denying that we have looked better since Caesar has returned into the football side, and he just guides us around the park fairly well. But that's all going to change next year, isn't it?
No, it is. We haven't won a game without him. But just going back to some of those one-word submissions, Frulin's mentioned 2025, and Steve, we are officially 2/3 of the way through the season, so 16 games, 8 to go. I get the feeling that we could finish the season quite well if we want to. And by that, I mean the last 2 or 3 years, we've almost thrown the white flag, whether that be the club giving players away mid-season. And that's happened a little bit this year in terms of players leaving next year, and they haven't brought in any mid-season signings. So maybe that's strategic, but certainly not doing any favours to this year's squad. But we're not injury-free, but we've got players coming back and players coming back into a little bit of form. Like, I just hate to see them sort of end the year with no wins. There's no excuse. Like, we had close to a full strength side. I know we're still missing Junior Tupou and Papali'i and a couple more. There's no reason this side can't win a couple more games and finish the year with a little bit of momentum going into next year. I do think that's important.
Yeah, I think you've just nailed it there, Eddie. What you just said. Finishing the year with momentum, not finishing the year with our head down and feeling like we're the basket case of the NRL. Look, I think we can beat the Sharks this week. I really do. I don't rate the Sharks at all, and even less after today's news that Nicho Hynes is not going to be playing. So I think we can win that game. I don't think we can beat the Rabbits the week after that. The Cowboys at Leichhardt Oval, maybe. The Knights up there, not sure. We've got the Rabbits again. Manly, who knows? The Eels, well, the Eels aren't playing well. It's still 4 or 5 weeks away. They might be playing better then. That's at Campbelltown. We can beat the way they're playing. We can beat the Eels. So there's a couple of games that are winnable.
No, I agree with that. Whether they'll do it or not is another thing. But do you think there's we mentioned Justin Olam is probably, obviously we're out of finals contention, but I just think he's the only one that looks to be really struggling and that could maybe benefit with a long break. But do you find it surprising that we haven't sort of made any mid-season signings? There was a bit of noise probably 3 or 4 weeks ago when Richardson went over to England that there might be something happening. Maybe we'll find out at the end of the season that he's got someone for next year. But at the moment, I know we've got 2 excellent signings in Luai and Taruva, but it's not going to be enough, Steve, to get out of that bottom few, I don't think.
No, it's not going to be enough. We need to keep building the roster. Look, it's really quiet, and I love that. Yep. I absolutely love the fact that it's quiet, that we don't know what's going on, because it means the club are working behind the scenes, and there's no way a bloke of Richardson's experience and stature in the game is not working hard behind the scenes. So whatever is happening. We just don't know about it. And that's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I'd love to hear about some signs. Obviously, I'd like to see that we get what we said earlier. I'd love to see Pole re-signed. I'd love to see Stefano decide to stay. I think that would be great. And would like to get us to pull in a couple of players. I think Nelson Solomona would be a great get for Melbourne. I don't know who else is out there. We definitely need to strengthen our forward pack. We still need a couple of outside backs. I don't know what happened when Richo was over in the UK. I don't know whether anything's going to come of that. He went over there for a reason. Let's hope. We've also haven't heard anything about the players that we've given permission to look around. I'm pretty sure that those guys won't be at the club next year either. I think we just are going to have to be very patient.
All right, Steve. Well, it's been a quickish edition of the podcast. We're just about through. We do have that game on Friday night. I know you want to mention you've got a trip coming up to the Central Coast because the Tigers play their Saturday week at 3:00 against South Sydney. What are you going to be doing there?
Yeah, so we've got an ambush event, and we are working closely with West Tigers. Again, we have re-established our relationship with them, and we're putting on an ambush function at the Settlers Tavern on Saturday the 20th of July up on the Central Coast. It's about a 10-minute walk from the stadium. So if
that is a beautiful stadium there, Steve. I've been there a few times when it's full like that. I know the NRL's not going to give them a full-time team, but that stadium's a lovely ground.
A great place to watch footy on. Lots of good atmosphere because you're really close. You're close to the action. But yeah, so we'll be at the Settlers Tavern at 1 p.m. on the 20th of July before the Rabbits game. We're going. The West Tigers supporting us with that, so we're hoping to have a guest of some prominence at that function. So if you're coming up, and I encourage you to come up, support the ambush, come and support the team, and get there for that game and that event. And we're also still pushing, Eddie, the bus for the podcast and ambush bus on the 11th of August that we want to take up to the Newcastle game. We're doing pickups at Lemire and Concord. It's $50 a ticket for adults and $35 for seniors and kids. If you want to put your name down for that and buy a ticket, you just go on the West Tigers podcast webpage, look up Game Day Coach Transport, and click on the link, and it'll take you to the page for that. And I'd encourage people. Last time the guys went out to Bathurst, they had a ball. So it'd be great to fill a bus to go up to Newcastle.
Little F5 double you got there, Central Coast and Newcastle, two good trips. I'll tell you where we won't be, Steve, is we won't be at Shark Park on Friday night. I couldn't think of anything worse than going to that dump of a ground. I mean, there's so much talk about Leichhardt and upgrades. I know they own the ground, so they're in a good spot there, but what does it hold these days? About 8,000, and the wind will be coming in sideways and the rain. It will be horrendous out there.
And it's always passive, mate. Like I've been to Shark Park a stack of times, and it's never. I don't know. Something about the Shire. Like, they're a very refined group of people, I find. It's all very quiet and polite, and and please, can we win?
Don't know if you've been to Northie, Steve. They're not very refined there at that pub.
No, I haven't been to Northie, mate. No, I have. Well, if I have, I'm not mentioning that I have been.
Yeah. All right, mate. Well, hopefully we'll get a couple of our regulars back, Steve. They've gone missing again. I know Declan seems to only come on after wins, and I know Gary was disappointed. He was at his daughter's swimming. He's always disappointed when he can't make it on.
I'm sure Gary will be back in a couple of days' time with bells on.
All right, guys.
That'd be something to see, wouldn't it? Gary with bells on. Just
Yeah,
picture that.
Visualising that when I go to bed tonight, Steve. Thanks, mate. I'll see you next time.
Cheers, mate. Bye, everyone.